Welcome to The Other Storyteller, the podcast sparking conversation in the arts and media world. I'm Maria, a filmmaker, entrepreneur, and curious artist from Colombia, living in the UK and Canada. The world is full of stories of cultures, places, and people, and I want to meet the most inspiring artists and storytellers from across cultures to uncover the stories that become art. Hello and welcome to The Other Storyteller. Today we have a very, very exciting guest. I know that I always say this is very exciting, but I have to say, there's a lot of times that I interview people that I've known for a while, so I'm really excited to interview them. But when I get to interview people I've never met in real life before, I am the most excited because there's a part of me that's just like really trying to understand where their stories come from. And this is totally the case today. So please say welcome to Teniola King. Teniola is a filmmaker from Nigerian origin, born in Britain, and she has been nominated for the MVCA Film Awards for her short film, Teju's Tale. So please say welcome to Teniola. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you? Thanks for having me here. I'm looking forward to this chat.
I am so happy to have you here. So I'm just gonna give a little bit of background so people know. So I actually got to know Taniola through a friend in common, and as you guys are gonna be meeting her, I am meeting her too. So I'm very, very excited, and I'm very grateful that you're here and that you're taking time to talk with us and to share your story.
Oh, no problem.
So tell me a little bit, what are you passionate about, or what are your projects that you have going on right now?
I'm passionate about good storytelling. And I say good storytelling because storytelling is a craft. Storytelling is something that is natural to people, but there's certain skills and a certain knowledge that needs to be applied to that natural form of storytelling for it to be done properly, if you ask me. So I'm all about the craft of storytelling, knowing that craft and telling stories. So right now I'm developing two projects, which is quite exciting. Two pitches. One is a rom-com and the other is a mystery thriller, both for TV. And yeah, obviously, the industry, can't really talk too much about what it's about. But it's been a very exciting journey working with these two production companies and like developing my first two pilots. And yeah, just living the life of a writer, as I say.
That is so exciting. I love that. So tell me a little bit about how you got into being a writer, because I know that a lot of people write stories and they love that, but they really don't know how to take their stories into a setting where it can be commercialized.
I guess it really just starts with the decision to do it, really. Everything starts with a decision. Everything you see in this world today started in someone's mind, and then they made a decision to pursue it. I'm a Christian, and I believe in like God telling people what their purpose is. So I believe that was the purpose God has for me, to be a filmmaker and to be a writer. So when I found that, I was like, okay, let me pursue this with everything. I actually started off quite a while ago. It's like nearly 10 years ago, which is wild. Now I'm giving my age. But when I was in uni, that's when I made the decision to become a filmmaker. And I actually started off as a producer in Nigeria. But then, long story short, I resigned my job as a producer and came back to London to do a master's in filmmaking at the London Film School. And it was just very exciting learning all the different aspects of filmmaking and then going on to decide to be a writer and a director. And just really just pursuing it. I guess it's really just making the decision and then giving yourself every opportunity to develop that craft. So for me, that was doing my master's at film school, so going to film school and then reading about it, watching YouTube videos about it. I know everybody can't go to film school because it can be quite expensive, but it's really just dedicating yourself to then learning it somehow, some way. Two books I always recommend are Story by Robert McKee and Save the Cat by Blake Snyder. And those two books are brilliant when it comes to storytelling and like how to write a proper script.
That's fantastic. I love that. So when you decided to quit your job in production and become a writer, so you did your studies, your master's. How did you get your first written piece picked up by anyone else, or how did you secure the first film incentives to make your first film?
So my very first, so in film school you have different projects. I had like a micro short film, which is actually online somewhere, called The Game, which is quite interesting. So I guess in school itself, we were encouraged to write stories and to pitch them. Sometimes they get picked up, sometimes they don't. But in general, we were doing that. So I guess I also developed my confidence in writing and pitching. And then at the end of my particular film school, you're encouraged to do a graduation film. And that was my very first proper short film. It was called Giddy High Life, set in Nigeria. And I wrote that and directed it and produced it. I also helped with the editing and like did quite a lot on this one film. And then when I finished that film, my friend Kobe, great friend of mine, he basically was like, Tenny, you got to do another film. And long story short, I went to bed one night, woke up the next morning, I remembered my grandma's story, which is Teju's tale, and God said, write that one. So I said, okay, no problem. So I wrote that script. And long story short, was able to get Sky to come on board. But I think we can talk about that later. But basically, each time I've decided to write, then different ways of the funding has come through. But I guess it always starts with that decision to write first. And then once you've written the script, looking for how you can start funding it and everything.
I love that. And I think that a lot of people are always like, do I find something that people like pay me to write, or do I write something and try to sell it? And I think that there's many ways to go about it, but definitely I always say to people, like, you want to be a writer, write something first and show the world that you can do it. If you want to be, I don't know, like a blog writer, a storyteller, a book writer, like write something and try to get people to look at that, because your work is going to be the best advocate of what your capabilities are and your drive too. Like when you're writing something that nobody's telling you, wake up and write it, it's you that wants to write it, it's you that's putting in the time. You really are showing people that this is what you're passionate about and that you have what it takes.
Yeah, I agree, because I am only now I've only started getting paid to write. I've been writing since 2016, so this is 7 years later. So it's only in the end of 2022, which is last year, that I finally got like my first check, so to say, with regards to me being a writer. But the reason why I was able to get to that point is because I have been writing short films up until then. And like one thing I always suggest or recommend for people that want to get into writing, you don't need to, but I would advise starting with short films, because it's actually harder to write a short film than it is to write a feature length. And people wonder why that is. Well, with the feature length, you have as much time to break down your characters, get into the story, and really give us as much information as you want to, because there's no limit, so to say, on feature films. People usually have it around the 90 minutes to 2 hour mark, but you have seen films that are 3 hours. But for a short film, it's recommended that your short film is 15 minutes or less. The shorter the better, because it's able to get into like festivals, because it's easier to schedule. And the longer your short film is, the harder it actually is to get into festivals, because they can't be scheduled. So it's not impossible, but that's just the dynamics of the industry that we're in. And to write a short film and to get a full story within 15 pages or within 15 minutes, more like, can be quite tasking. It's harder to do an arc. It's harder to have that character development. It's harder to tell that story within 15 minutes. And if as a writer, you can challenge yourself to do that and do that successfully, then people can then have the confidence to be like, okay, if she or he can do this shorter form, then there's a possibility they can do it for 30 minutes, which is a TV pilot, or 45, depending on if it's an hour or 30 minutes, or a feature film. So I always recommend writing like what you have, write with what you have, and then also that will then open the doors for longer form. And also on the flip side, financially, short films don't make money. People say, oh, you can get like, it's very rare. I have friends, I've spoken to a lot of my friends. How many of you have gotten money from your short film? The answer has always been no. You do have occasions where your film might win like a prize and it has like a cash prize attached to it. But most of the time, I mean, Teju's Tale, I haven't gotten any money for it. Giddy High Life, no money for it. My friends, as I said, they haven't gotten money for their films. So it doesn't make money, which is why people are not inclined to pay you to write a short film, because it's business at the end of the day. If they're making an investment, they want returns on their investments. So when somebody's actually giving you money to do a short film, they're investing in you and in your future and trying to give you a calling card for the future.
Yeah, I think that that's definitely amazing advice that you're giving there. It's feature films are really your way into the film world, and they can show what you can do in really short amount of time and how concise you're able to portray an idea and how much you're able to evoke emotion in a very short period of time and generate attachment to characters in very little time. Yet at the same time, it's not necessarily what's going to generate the most money for you. And I know that for a lot of people, it's like this becomes part of their portfolios or their reels, and because of that, they are able to get jobs over time in the film industry. But definitely one of those things that it's like you have to do some of this work that it's not paid or that you're not going to make money from, to really be able to receive some things in exchange. And I think that's actually tricky, I always say, because in the film and in the media arts world, you do a lot of free stuff or things that don't necessarily make money. Sometimes you get paid to work in short films, just by other people that are hiring you and stuff like that, but it's usually like a quite smaller amounts, right? But then you actually get a lot of experience, get exposure, and also get a network, which is what at the end of the day makes filmmaking. It's really hard to make a film on your own. And you were saying it before, like you did several jobs within your film and it was quite difficult, right?
Yeah, like I did 7 years of making things.
Yeah.
And not getting paid anything. And it's funny because short films actually, other crew members usually do get paid, but sometimes, and it's entirely up to the writer or the director or the producer. But most times, I mean, I personally haven't been paid for any of my short films. I'm not saying this is how it always is, because people usually do try and get paid. But for me, I wanted that money to go back into the production because Teju's Tale is a period drama. And as a result, it's much more expensive than a normal film would be, just because like you have to get costumes, you have the production design, that's taking lots of money. And people don't usually do period dramas for short films. So it's one of those weird ones where sometimes you kind of just have to make a little bit of a sacrifice. If you can get paid, get paid. I always advocate for getting paid if you can. But as I said, this is just from my own experience and from the experience that I know of other people who unfortunately, because of the circumstances, they just haven't gotten paid. And even if you are getting paid, as you said, for a short film, it's not going to be enough to sustain you. It's going to be like literally maybe in £100, 200 max, like 500 max if it's a good wealthy budget, a healthy budget more like. But it's very rare for that to happen.
Definitely. Yeah, I definitely resonate with that. And I remember when I got in the film industry, I did quite a lot of free stuff. And I actually was getting paid more often in short films than I was getting paid when I was working in features. So just for reference, I went into the industry in the camera department, but I was also the assistant to a producer. And that was great. And I got into a lot of productions as a trainee, for example. Trainees actually get paid, and there were a lot of instances that I didn't get paid. And I used to get like people pull me aside and they're like, how come you're not getting paid? Like when they would like find out, and they were like so mad, because in reality, there's something that I think it's instinct, and you have to really develop a way to pick up these things. But even when you go into feature films and things like that, you have to figure out if everyone's getting paid and you're not. You have to figure out if it's like if even you could be getting paid £100 a day or £50 a day or something to cover your gas, to cover your expenses to be in the place. Because in most cases, for say feature films that have funding behind them, there is a way to pay you something.
Yes.
But at the same time, you know, if there was no money, I would still do it in many occasions. So it's a hard one, right?
Yeah, no, but I think for feature films, you should get paid.
Yeah.
Definitely, because they have the money to pay you. They might not have the money to pay you a lot of money, but as you said, even if it's £50, they
Yeah,
should pay you for a feature film. And
exactly.
it's that weird thing when you're just trying to get in, so you're just happy to be there in the first place, you're just trying to soak it up.
Yeah,
But unfortunately, you have people that are taking advantage of that, and
exactly.
they do not pay people when they should pay people and get to people. That's free labor, and that's wrong. So just to clarify, if anyone is listening, for short films, it's more forgivable because we know that short films do have tiny budgets. But I would even still say that they should still cover your transport costs
For
at
sure.
least.
Yeah,
For feature films, they do have more money, and it might not be a lot of money, but they should have enough to pay you at least something.
yeah,
Whether you're a trainee, even if you're there for a week, it doesn't matter. They should pay something.
yeah,
And you don't be
100%.
shy to ask, because most, if you don't ask, you don't get, as they say, closed mouths don't get fed. So yeah, but it's hard. Like, don't, like, I know I'm saying it now with full confidence and full vim. I know if I was in the same position, I'll find it hard to ask. But
Yeah.
if you don't speak up, then you can be missing out on a lot, sadly.
Absolutely. And also not just about what you're missing out on, but you're setting a precedent for other people to not get paid. And I think that that's where, when someone told me like, oh, you know, like you're making this decision to not get paid and you don't care, but then the people that do care and the people that need to pay for at least their food for the day or for a few days, like they're not getting paid and they're actually getting in trouble because decisions you're making and other people like you. So I just wanted to send a little message there for people because that is also important. But I want to really dive into Teju's tale and where that inspiration came from. You were just talking about this being the story of her grandma, and I actually found that out while we're talking. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Is that a story that you heard from your grandma, or did you get a chance to talk to your grandma to write it?
So I actually, when I was living and working in Nigeria as a producer, I was staying at my grandma's house. My family's based in London. So whenever I'm home in Nigeria, I'm at my grandma's house. And after work, most nights I would go home and just sit down with her. She would tell me so many different stories of her time in England and all her different adventures and all the different things she got up to. And Teju's tale was actually one of those stories about when she first got in, and like two Caucasian set of twins trying to see her tail because they thought she was a monkey, and basically how she got them back. So this is a story she told me many years ago, probably like 2016, 2015 maybe. And but as I said, she tells me lots of stories. So I completely forgot about it. And then fast forward to 2019 when I said I was having a conversation with my friend, and he was like, "You got to do another film." So I literally went to bed that night, woke up the next morning, and I just randomly remembered that story. And God said, "Tell this story." And I was like, "Okay, no problem." So I wrote the script. Funny enough, I actually didn't ask her for permission because, she can't say no. But I wrote the story. I wrote the first draft and sent it to my friend, and he was like, "This is absolutely amazing. We're going to get it done." And I was like, "Okay, no problem." But then from that point onwards, I was then having discussions with my grandma and asking her different different questions about the story, and like asking her to expand a bit more, just so that as I'm writing, I could build the world authentically. So like, what color was your clothes? What did you eat in the mornings? Like, how was your bed? Um, just different questions to just ensure that we're bringing that authenticity to the story and to the film. So that's where the story came from. And she was very, very instrumental in building it even further once I decided to make it into a script.
I love that. And I imagine she's got to see the film now.
Yes. She's watched it twice, actually. The first time she watched it, she's like, yes, that's what happened. Yes, that's how they treated me. But I think for her, she's just happy that her story has been told, and like it's going to be out there forever, I guess, until the internet is no more, because it's on YouTube now. So yeah, her story is out there with her pictures and like, you know, her voice is there.
I love that.
Into eternity.
I love that. And I think that there's obviously to that part of your, like the story of your family and your grandma, it's something that is quite personal in a way, because it's, you know, I don't want to spoil it for everyone, but you kind of talked about it. There's an element of bullying, an element of racism, of xenophobia. Do you feel that you healed through it? And do you think that your grandma, in a way, through seeing the story told, is able to heal from that type of, you know, like hatred that people can pass?
Yeah, I mean, I guess whenever someone shows hate towards you, it will always hurt. Um, and for me personally, I believe in not allowing things to affect me too deeply when possible. Just because at the end of the day, this is someone else saying something about you that isn't true. And as far as I'm concerned, if it's not true, then there's no need for you to hold on to it, no matter how mean it is. They should be, we should be corrected and maybe even chastised for the wrong they've done to you. But ultimately, it's up to you, the person, to not allow it to go deep into your soul, because when it does, that's when it gets affected. And that person then goes on to live their lives and do whatever. Meanwhile, you're still holding on to this hurt that this person has caused. So with regards to whether or not it healed my grandma, I feel like it's something she probably let go of a long time ago. And has then gone on to become a nurse and have children and get married and now have grandchildren and great grandchildren and is still living a healthy life in Lagos. My grandma is 89, she's going to be 90 next year. So I doubt it gave her any type of healing. And if you're ever around old people, you know, they get to a certain age where they literally have zero filters and they literally just could care less about anything because they're old. Whether or not it healed me personally, I think if anything, it actually just opened up my eyes to how bad things were back then and how overt the racism was. Like there's still racism today, but especially here in England, it's quite subtle. It's like it's low key, as they like to say. Um, so if anything, it opened my eyes up to it and made me more appreciative of the people that have been here and went through like literally terrible, horrendous racism, but were still able to strive and navigate and ensure that they were prosperous in whatever they did. And for me, it then encourages me that I have no rights to not go forth and ensure that I am literally doing everything I can within my power and with God's grace to achieve everything that I've been called to achieve.
That's definitely so inspiring. And I think that that's beyond healing, it's empowering, you know. It's really taking a situation and turning it into the fuel that keeps you moving forward, and that doesn't allow for things like that to happen to you or to people around you, that really cultivates your environment and the culture and the people around you, which I think is really beautiful. Yeah. So I am conscious of the time a little bit. So I wanted to, first of all, be super grateful for sharing the story of your grandma. And I know that definitely it's in a way it's hard to tell that kind of story, you know, but I also think that it's incredibly beautiful, incredibly well filmed. I thought, wow, like this is incredible. So I am going to leave the link in the podcast for anyone that wants to see it, because I really think that you should be watching this film. And I wanted to ask you a few different questions that I think people will be really interested in hearing the answer to. So number one, what would be the advice that you would have given yourself, or you would give yourself today, when you were younger, when you were starting in the film industry, or when you first became interested in becoming a filmmaker?
I think the advice I would give myself would be to be courageous and just be bold and just go for it. And know that just because you get a no doesn't mean that's the end, because you will get no's and rejections, especially on this type of journey. But that doesn't mean your work isn't good. Maybe you need to improve your work, you know, but not to be discouraged. I would also advise myself to be consistent, because I have a good community around me. I have a good bunch of filmmakers that are my friends that have been around me and I can speak to. And sometimes people always look for like the Oscar award-winning producers or writers or directors or actors to like get advice from. But it's like, actually, no, you have people that are in your immediate circle. And if you can work with them and get advice from them and also give them advice, not even just with work, but just like mentally, just get them to encourage you, um, then you will see that as you all continue to progress together as a community, you will all achieve and do well. I have a group of friends that are doing extremely well, but we've known each other for years now. And looking at us now, it's like, wow, how did we get here? Um, and also realizing that there's enough for everybody. There's a lot of money in this industry, and there's also a lot of amazing ideas. So never feel the need to have to withhold information from people or like not share because you think that they might get one over you. That's never the case. Like those that give will continue to have to give. But sometimes there's a whole perception that you kind of need to be like, dog eat dog or cat eat cat, whatever the saying is, and not really be there for each other. So I will just say embrace the community, embrace the journey and enjoy it. We're making films, like enjoy the journey. It's a very entertaining, no pun intended, but very entertaining industry to be in.
Yeah.
And yes, there can be its struggles and this and that, but ultimately you are making films for a living, and that's exciting. So enjoy the journey.
I love that. I think that that's so beautiful. And what you were saying about there being enough for everyone, I really believe that that's the case. And I also know that in many occasions I've been in places where I was really protective of what I was working on. And the reality is that the stories you want to tell, other people don't care about. Like they don't want to tell them, it's not their story to tell. And I think that at the end of the day, there's so many stories, and how that person tells it would be so different from how you tell it too. So definitely a collaborative collaborative environment, and we need the people, and we need that feedback to be able to write stories that resonate with people and to refine how we tell the story, right? So thank you for that feedback. I think that is beautiful.
You're welcome.
All right, so now another question. If right now you had to choose a film, a music album, a painting, an installation, or any piece of art that you feel like people right here need to experience today, what would that be and why?
Oh, it's interesting. Give me a variety of things. Let's do music because I love music. I feel like if I wasn't in film, I'll be in music because music is amazing. One album you should and must listen to would be an album called Masterpiece by Rachel Kerr. If you haven't heard of Rachel Kerr, she is one of the most phenomenal singers I've ever heard. And I know that sounds like a very, very big thing to say, but when you hear her sing, you will literally be blown away. She has sang for presidents. She is the vocal coach of many amazing big artists today. And she herself is just phenomenal. She's an amazing performer as well. I've been for her concerts a few times. And her messages are also her songs more like also have lovely messages in them. And she's just amazing as a person, but really and truly her vocal range is phenomenal. If you ever get to see her live, go and see her live. But start with the albums first and enjoy.
Thank you. I'm gonna go listen. I have to. It sounds amazing. I definitely, you know what? Funny enough, I feel like people that study film, they love music, they love photography, they love art in general, and it's like you just can't make a decision, so you just go for film, where you can do all of them in one.
I want to do everything. I want to get into music videos now.
Oh,
Like
that's so good.
emerges the two passions together. But like music videos that are like narrative music videos, not really just party, party, party. I don't want to do that. I want to do like kind of mini short films.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? Music video that I don't know why I want to mention it, but Al J had the Breeze Blocks music video back in I don't even know when. It was probably 2013. It was like so
Okay.
long ago. That was mind blowing. It's like you start seeing the whole story backwards, and then you think the story is this is the story. It takes you a while to realize it's backwards. It
What did
takes
you
you
say
a
the
while
name
to
was?
realize the whole thing is like completely not what you thought. Just incredible narrative.
What was the name again?
Breeze Blocks
Breeze
from
Bloods.
Blocks, yeah. So Breeze Blocks from Alt J.
Hey, haven't heard of
Very
it.
good. I'll send you a link. I'll send you a link.
Okay,
Incredible
great.
video. I love those music videos that I'm like, this is a short film without words. You know, like just incredible. Incredible. All right. So now the last question. This is the one that I feel like challenges people, but I want you to think like outside of the box and just whatever comes to your mind. Like just commit. You're gonna watch films from one country or consume media from one country only for 1 month. This is like you are in a deserted island and then they're like, oh, I'm gonna send you a laptop or a projector and only films from one country. What is that country?
I mean, if you say media, so media including like music as well, or
Yeah,
just
it can be music.
oh,
Yeah.
then it has to be Nigeria. It has to be.
Yes.
Because I mean, film wise, okay. So music wise, like Afrobeats. If you haven't heard of Afrobeats, I don't know what planet you're on, but you need to listen to Afrobeats, and that's like literally my go-to genre anytime, any day. Apart
I
from
love
gospel, but Afrobeats. So I don't think I could be on an island and not be able to listen to any other like type of music for the rest of my life. I think I might just go mad. So Afrobeats has to be there. And even film wise, Nollywood, which is what the Nigerian industry, film industry is called. Nollywood is getting to a place where we're really producing a lot of phenomenal, interesting films that have like high production value as well. So I guess limiting it to just Nollywood is a bit scary. But I do believe we have a variety of stories that are being told, and it's interesting seeing the growth in the industry. Even going back to the old Nollywood films, there's some that have some very, very, very vital messages in it that even affect me till today. I'll give you one random example. And there's a Nollywood film that I watched probably when I was like, I don't know, like 6 or so, like ages ago. And it makes it sound like I'm old. I'm not that old. But anyways, I watched it quite a few years ago. And in this particular film, the the male figure was dating this girl, and long story short, invited her over for the night. Nothing happened because she had a headache, and he gave her some medicine so she could just like sleep and rest. By the next morning, she was dead. And what had happened was he had mistakenly given her expired medicine, which had affected her overnight and resulted in her death. And then he went to prison, It's another whole story. But I kid you not, ever since I watched that film, whenever I want to take medicine, I always check the expiry date. Because I'm like, oh no, I don't want to die, don't want to get sick. And Nollywood has always had a way of relating messages to people in a very interesting, just in an interesting way. So yeah, I will stick with my Nollywood because it's my culture and they have some very interesting films from back then and very exciting projects that are going to continue to come out. Because it's still like I say, you still get new films, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll stick in Hollywood.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. I definitely, I actually had a chat with one of my professors at the business school. So he does a lot of research around the production of film, economics, and business. And he mentioned, I haven't done my research on this topic, but I believe him, maybe. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but he was saying that one of the most interesting reasons that like Nigerian film and a lot of the African countries film like is exploding, it's really growing, is that there used to be a lot of like pirated films that were being produced and sold, and actually in my country as well, I have to say I have been guilty of buying a lot of pirated films because it's the only way that you could get it. It's so expensive, and it was like I wanted to watch films that were not available, so I would just pirate them. But then basically what they did is they realized that these are markets that have huge amount of people, and you know, like actually the best way to do this is to fund film, like local film, so actually people would be consuming the film that is coming from within and be more willing to pay for it, rather than continuing to just basically like give them things that they would pirate, which I thought was really interesting. I hope someone does that with Colombia, please, if anyone's listening. I think it's great. It's very, very interesting. Okay, I think we've come to the end of this chat, and I am super grateful. I'm gonna definitely go and look at more Nigerian films, and if you have any recommendations, I'd love to have them, because I'm really trying to explore and widen my world of media. I am sure that a lot of people here would also. So thank you very much for being here, and I really hope to see you again soon.
Yes, hope to see you too. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.